Welcome to the Indiana State Fair. I'm excited to be back at the State Fairgrounds in Indianapolis for one of the greatest state fairs in the Union. I grew up going to this state fair, and I haven't been back in many years, so in this video we are going to explore the entire fairground and see what there is to offer in this year's edition. Our first stop will be the new Swine Barn. The 1923 Swine Barn has undergone a complete $50 million renovation. In fact, all that's original is the brick facade. The Spanish colonial revival-ish barn was one of the largest purebred swine facilities in the nation back in the 20s. It's really more like a swine palace. I am so glad they kept this original facade with the hogshead motifs. Now called the Indiana Farm Bureau Fall Creek Pavilion, which is a mouthful, is now a sleek multi-purpose swine barn. While I miss the old-fashioned feel of the barn, it does look very nice and there are still plenty of fat pigs from all around the state. Well, that was kind of disturbing. Anyways, here's a pig portrait made out of maize. There is new fair artwork by the entrance to the pavilion that's quite nice. The original 1892 fairground was designed around this thoroughfare, known as Indiana's Main Street. There is the historic Pepsi Coliseum, an Art Deco Works Progress Administration building from the New Deal. The Beatles once played in there, and soon after a gas explosion inside killed 81 people and injured hundreds of others. Catastrophe struck the fairgrounds again when this grandstand collapsed in 2011 and killed 7 people. Inside the old Pepsi Coliseum, there's an Indiana cornucopia, emphasis on the corn. I do like these Art Deco ticket booth grills. Garfield the cat was created by Hoosier illustrator Jim Davis. Now he's an insurance mascot. Here's a commemoration of the 2024 Paris Olympics. There are all sorts of delicious and borderline grotesque fair foods available. They've got all the deep fried goodies you could possibly imagine here, although things like deep fried Oreos is definitely taking it too far. Here is a legendary elephant ear, which has its origins in Navajo fry bread, which was created during the Long Walk, which was essentially a forced death march by the US government in the mid-1860s. I'm going to head to a classic and relatively inexpensive location, the Dairy Round Barn on the main drag. While they do have really good cow's milk at this spot, I just got some fried cheese sticks, as the cheese curds at the Wisconsin cheese stand cost like $18 these days. I am going to skip over the Midway this year, but they've got the usual carny rides at the state fair. This year's fair theme is the art and nature of fun, in collaboration with Newfields, formerly known as the Indianapolis Museum of Art. So now let's head inside the Harvest Pavilion, where they have some art. There is an amazing installation by Anila Quayyum Agha, a Pakistani-American artist who uses light to transform spaces into immersive visual spectacles. She is quite famous for her installations like this. They are shown at major museums and galleries around the country and the world, so it's a big deal to have one here at the State Fair. This cube made of lacquered steel and filled with LED lights projects the laser-cut floral motifs from Persian patterns onto the surrounding walls in this immersive chamber. The radiant installation, titled All the Flowers Are For Me, Turquoise, was inspired by the artist's experience growing up in Lahore and immigrating to America. Agha has said that she feels like a stranger in both locales, so she has created these spaces to reflect inclusivity. The turquoise color of the cube is inspired from Pakistani lapis lazuli. Here's a maquette she made for a large house called This Is Not a Refuge. Apparently Newfields has the refuge house now, and when you go in you hear recordings she did with refugees now living in the Indianapolis area. Newfields is on the property of a historic country house built by the Lillies, and they also own Eero Saarinen's Miller House in Columbus, which is a modernist masterpiece. Now let's head into the 1925 Indiana Arts Building, where fine arts and home arts are displayed and judged. My favorite things in here are these vintage streamlined display cases. They are glorious. They have been used to show off quilts and all sorts of arts for decades. I am so glad they keep using these beauties. This is a Scarlett O'Hara inspired dress from Gone with the Wind. They have a display of watercolors by former Second Lady Karen Pence. And would you look at that, there's one of the US Capitol. Her husband, Vice President Mike Pence, sure has a history with that place. There is photography upstairs, but they don't want me showing that. They also have categorized competitions for the best antiques. I would definitely give any of these albums a listen. There's a Benjamin Harrison cloth banner. President Harrison was the only president from Indianapolis, and it says Protect Home Industry. He was big on tariffs and signed a 50% duty on imports, which did significantly raise consumer prices and hasten the Panic of 1893. There's an FDR bust next to a pin supporting his 1940 opponent Wendell Willkie of Rushville, Indiana. There's a Roy Rogers and Dale Evans book next to a novel by Booth Tarkington of Indianapolis. That's the first place Ugly Lamp winner. Honestly, well deserved. Love the old Muncie pennant flag. There's a gourd pig and a gourd alien. And I'm surprised they let this be shown. Let's take a peek inside Hook's Drugstore Museum, one of the definitive highlights of the Indiana State Fair. Hook's was a pharmacy chain founded in Indianapolis in 1900, and it lasted a long time. It was eventually acquired by CVS in the 90s. The cabinets are from an 1852 drugstore that was in Cambridge City, Indiana, along the old National Road. This museum is essentially a mock Hook's drugstore, and it is the only pharmacy museum at a state fair in the nation. This place is jam-packed with all sorts of authentic pharmaceutical and soda fountain artifacts. There are thousands of pharmacy tools, apothecary bottles, and old medicines on display. The medicines work to varying degrees. There's an old Eli Lilly cabinet. Colonel Eli Lilly started his pharmacy here in Indianapolis in 1876. Back in the good old days, you could use leeches to bleed yourself clean. There's a classic Ward's Orange Crush orange-shaped bottle. It was one of the earliest orange-flavored carbonated beverages. Hamlin's Wizard Oil was served as a cure-all. In the late 1800s, they had a traveling medicine show that at one point employed Indiana's own songwriter Paul Dresser and poet James Wickham Riley as performers. There's a cigar store Indian carving back here. A visit to Hook's is always a highlight. It is one of the longest running kitschy museums still in existence, and it's only open during the fair in August. The 1921 Agriculture and Horticulture building has been renamed to the Mercantile, since it's primarily just a place to shop for local products nowadays with everything from cheese to honey. The most exciting feature is the Great Cheese Sculpture. This year it's sticking with the Art of Fun theme. I never thought I would see the Mona Lisa, or should I say Mona Lisa, drinking milk composed entirely of cheese. That's pretty awesome. And of course there is a Cheese American Gothic by Grant Wood, or in this case, American Cowlick. That is a hilarious shirt. The Tenderloin of Terror. There are some award-winning giant vegetables on show here, including but not limited to the largest gourd in the state of Indiana. Dang, those are some big pumpkins. To get to the other side of the fairgrounds, we're going to cross this covered bridge. It's a replica of the famous Bridgeton Covered Bridge in Park County, Indiana. That county has the highest concentration of covered bridges in the world with 31 total. I visited most of them.
Also, in the back behind the German corner, we have our mechanical building.
There's the Works Progress Administration built 4-H hall and dormitory. This is the Indiana limestone built Department of Natural Resources building from 1951. Inside there are some aquariums with Hoosier fishes.
Cooling of mud on everything in sight. You know all homes have sustained heavy damage, and some houses will be destroyed.
Adjacent to the DNR building there is a butterfly garden. I stumbled across a petting zoo run by the FFA with some little alpacas. The FFA also has a mini golf course in here. This is a special attraction this year, an outdoor lantern display. I bet this looks a lot better at night, but I'm not staying that late. So let's take a quick look at all these animals. You can walk through the mouth of a T-Rex. That's pretty awesome. Can't say I've ever come out the beehole of a T-Rex. Some weird butterfly walk-around characters on stilts showed up. Well, look who it is! My favorite soy boy, Benny the Bean. He's stationed outside the ultra-modern glass barn, which focuses on all things soy. Inside there are exhibits about Indiana's second most profitable crop, after corn of course, showing how soy is in just about everything. It also discusses smart agriculture methods, like having drones disperse fertilizers,
Just that easy.
99%. I got it 100%. I harvested it all.
The Normandy Barn is one of the oldest structures on the fairgrounds. It got moved here from somewhere else in the States. This year there is a Lego town inside. And here's an idyllic Lego farm. Now we have arrived at the Pioneer Village.
8 by 12, 4-bedroom mama. Made a big Babylon, king of the road. Remember the last time?
Outside the main building, there is a colossal stiff-tongue cart, which was horse-drawn to move giant logs out of the forest. Among the earliest settlers in what would become Indianapolis were John Johnson and Sarah Purcell, who built a cabin just like this in approximately this spot in 1822. The site for the new capital city of Indianapolis was selected near their cabin in 1825. This building is jam-packed with antiques. I love it. Here's a 1920 Moline Universal Model E, one of only two known to exist. In America the Beautiful, you can watch old white people eat. Here are some wonderful restored farm antiques like a hand corn sheller. This is a 1920 Studebaker farm wagon, produced by the Studebaker brothers of South Bend, Indiana. That's an excellent 1929 Ford Model AA truck for hauling gasoline. This looks to be a mix of Huber and Garr steam engine parts. Huber was from Ohio, while Garrs were manufactured in Richmond, Indiana. And here's the legendary Fordson tractor, which had a tendency to tip over. This is a cool one, the Minneapolis steam thresher. These were produced from the 1890s until about 1920. That's a big old grain separator from 1910. Let's check out the Milk Museum, where they've got all the old-fashioned milk bottles and paraphernalia one could possibly imagine. Here are some old milk coolers. This cement one from 1915 apparently worked fairly well. Now horsing around in the horse barn. And right outside the stable there is a horse graveyard. The Indiana Historical Society has a new display in these train cars. And this year it's all about Hoosier lore. Other states like West Virginia with Mothman, or New Mexico with the Roswell aliens get more attention, but Indiana has its own mysterious stories, places, and cryptids. My favorite is the Beast of Busco, which was spotted in 1948, when a man allegedly came across a colossal turtle the size of a boat in this lake near Churubusco, Indiana. People tried to trap the turtle and even drain the lake, but he was nowhere to be found. Since then, however, the town has truly embraced their turtle legend. There's a haunted cemetery near Greencastle where Daniel Boone's sister is buried, that has a haunted cave where John Dillinger was rumored to have escaped police after his big robbery of the bank in Greencastle. Socialite Nellie Meyer of Indianapolis was a self-proclaimed scientific palmist, and she allegedly took Indianapolis actress Carol Lombard's palm reading and urged her not to fly anymore shortly before her fatal plane crash near Las Vegas. Perhaps the greatest Indy legend is the House of Blue Lights. While it sadly no longer stands, the home of eccentric millionaire Skiles Test was decorated in blue Christmas lights all year round. It was kind of creepy apparently, and there was a rumor that he kept his dead wife's body in a glass coffin displayed with a strange blue glow around it inside, although he never married. A mysterious phantom panther terrorized several counties and reportedly mauled several people from the 1870s into the 1900s, even though panthers have never lived in Indiana. The Willard Library in Evansville is the oldest public library in the state. It's also the most haunted. In 1937, a custodian arrived at 3 in the morning to find a coal furnace on, and a lady in gray standing at the end of the hall. There are a couple stories about who the ghostly lady may be, and that library has some of the longest running live webcams on the internet, in an attempt to spot paranormal activity. A longtime stage manager at the historic Embassy Theater in Fort Wayne is rumored to haunt the place, and it's even believed that his spirit saved it from demolition. Mud mermaids were reportedly sighted and caught in the Ohio River town of Vivi, Indiana, a place I am very familiar with and have several videos about, but I've somehow never heard about this. In 1890, 2 fishermen spotted 2 figures in the water while pulling their nets in, and found them to be creatures that appeared to be a mix between human and amphibian. The top half was human-like with webbed hands, and the bottom half had hind legs which tapered in, much like the legendary Fiji mermaid. Captain J.M. Ozier inspected the male mermaid, and found it to be 5 feet long, 150 pounds, and had yellow coloring on its face and arms. The captain determined that they lived off fish and mussels, and only came close to the shore at high tide. Apparently no one knows what happened to the mermaid carcasses. I would sure like to see those. I went to college in Crawfordsville, and had no idea about this terrifying story. The Crawfordsville Spectre haunted the town in 1891. It was essentially a giant eyeball monster in the sky. While 2 men were hitching their horses before dawn, a sudden sense of dread came upon them, and as they looked up they saw a strange specter hovering 400 feet in the air. It then headed over into the town of Crawfordsville, where a minister and a drunk saw it, but it vanished by daylight. I saw some strange things at college, but not this thing. There are also some reported gateways to hell around Indiana. While the Avon Bridge was under construction in 1906, immigrant worker Dad Jones fell through a wooden platform into a newly poured section of the bridge. The crew was unable to remove his body from the concrete, so he's still encased in there and haunts the bridge. Several people have actually died there over the years. At the Steps Cemetery deep inside the Morgan Monroe State Forest, there is a grave of an infant. The woman in black, believed to be the ghost of its mother, has been sighted for decades sitting on a stump in the dead of night watching over the grave. When businessman John Heinel of Terre Haute passed away in 1920, he was entombed in the family mausoleum. His loyal bulldog stood guard outside the mausoleum and refused to leave until he keeled over, so Stiffy Green the dog was then stuffed and placed in the tomb. Now he's an exhibit at the county museum, but some say you can still see his glowing green eyes at the cemetery. In the 1970s, there was a rumor of a spring break hatchet man who murdered a young student at Indiana University in Bloomington. Al Capone would stay at the Barbie Hotel in Warsaw, Indiana, as did John Dillinger and Babyface Nelson. However, that's not why it's haunted. Apparently it's because a double homicide occurred on the property decades before the hotel was built. One of the most devastating train wrecks in US history occurred in Hammond in 1918. An engineer fell asleep at the wheel and crashed into a Hagenbeck-Wallace circus train, killing 86 circus performers and workers along with many animals. A man was speeding with his wife in tow while crossing the Dogface Bridge, when suddenly a dog appeared in front of them. He crashed trying to avoid the dog, and in the fiery wreckage the body of a man was found intact, while the woman and dog were both mysteriously decapitated. The ghost of a woman holding the head of a dog has been spotted. And finishing up with the Crosley Monster, a giant Sasquatch-like creature that has been reported in the Crosley Fish and Wildlife area. In 2006, a group of boys were reportedly chased out by the growling monster. So Indiana does have its own Bigfoot. I absolutely love this display. Some stories were familiar, but I learned some new ones too. Now we've almost completed the circuit around the fairgrounds. The speed barns stand all along the east side. The original speed barn was constructed in the 1880s, then a whole line of them were built by the WPA. They have been almost all fully restored over the past decade, and they look great. There are horses inside some of them, so they are being used once again.
Yeah, I understand. This one came out too. Yes, brother.
The fairgrounds surround a historic racetrack, one of the first ever built in America. It became world-renowned in 1903 when Barney Oldfield became the first driver to run 60 miles per hour on a closed course. Here at the Indiana Beef Tent, I got a delicious ribeye sandwich. So I'm not going to do any rides. You do have to purchase separate tickets, but there is one more pavilion to check out. The old poultry building has some chicken motifs on it. They don't lie. There are indeed chickens in here. There are also some adorable ducks. There is a double turkey chili dog recipe right next to the live baby turkeys. Poor little guy. Okay, these chicks are pretty adorable. So that was a fun day at the Indiana State Fair. I hope you enjoyed this meander around. If you did, then please make sure to like the video, share it, and subscribe to my channel. Also consider taking a look at my other videos on all sorts of events, museums, historic places, natural wonders, and much more all around the great state of Indiana, as well as the United States and even Europe. I have not been to any state fairs besides Indiana and Kentucky, but I do want to film more in the future. It's a great tradition. Thanks for watching!